On December 6th, Marvel Rivals launched to critic and audience acclaim. People loved this game, and almost every major streamer was playing it. All my friends were playing it, all the YouTubers I watched were playing it, and all people wanted to talk about online was Marvel Rivals. So I downloaded the game a couple days after launch and played it with two friends who had been grinding. After a few hours of playing, I was so bored and unimpressed that I decided to end the play session early. I figured maybe I just had a bad day or something, so I decided that I was going to play again the next day. And when the next day came, I hopped on with my friends, grinded for a couple hours, and still hated the game. I couldn't figure out what I disliked so much, but I decided I wasn't going to play Rivals anymore. Fast forward about a month, and Marvel Rivals Season 1 launches, adding 2 new characters and some balance changes to existing heroes. My friend Zach hadn't played the game yet, but once he saw how much people were loving Season 1, he wanted to check it out. So, reluctantly, I reinstalled the game to play for a few hours. 2 hours later, I couldn't take it anymore, and I decided to hop off. I honestly felt bad for Zach, but I just couldn't figure out any way to have fun while playing. So that's my experience with the game. I want to clarify that in Overwatch, I didn't play at all from Seasons 2 to the start of Season 13, and even when I have been playing, I don't play super often. I also didn't play Overwatch 1, so I didn't fall in love with the game in its glory days or anything like that. I'm just a guy who thinks Overwatch is fun and doesn't feel the same way about Marvel Rivals. Before talking about some of the things that I dislike about Rivals though, I gotta give the developers a little bit of credit for some of the things that I noticed that I thought were kind of cool. The first thing is absolutely nothing. They did nothing. Obviously, I'm just kidding. The first thing I think the developers did right is the amount of characters to play on launch. There's a wide variety of play styles, and you know, if you're a fan of one part of the Marvel universe, then you probably have a hero that you're gonna like. My other favorite thing from Marvel Rivals is the destructible terrain and buildings. These allow you to destroy some cover that your enemies might be hiding behind, or even clear pathways through the ground to the point in some maps. I think it's pretty cool, and maybe Overwatch could use something like that, but yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. Finally, I do like the loading screens when you're loading in and out of the match, and I do like how sleek the UI feels. Alright, so now my first thing that I do not like about Marvel Rivals is, so far, the character balancing has been atrocious. If you played Season 0 and you had to play against Jeff the Landshark, which was, let's be real, it was basically every game was Jeff the Landshark, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's an entire month, and this GIF right here was pretty much the most common video I saw on Twitter. People either loved playing as him because he took no skill, or hated him because he took no skill. Jeff was extremely OP, and although he was probably the worst case of Marvel Rivals' failure to balance their characters so far, which, you know, I'll give him a little bit of credit. It's the start of a new game, so there's going to be balancing issues. But there were a lot of other characters that were also really annoying and really OP in Season 0, and they didn't even receive any changes with Season 1.
This kid, nope. Here, kill Stretchy Armstrong. Why is this guy so strong, bro? Like 5 of us are shooting at him and he's just not dying. Bro, this is actually wild.
If you compare Rivals to a game like Overwatch, it's clear to see that Overwatch does an amazing job with staying on top of balancing their characters. People don't always love every change that is made to different heroes in Overwatch, but for the most part, if a change is really hated, sometimes within a couple hours, the developers will hotfix the game to revert that change. They're constantly changing stuff up. They change things up mid-season and at the start of each season. They're constantly rebalancing heroes, but the whole point of balancing is to make sure that they all have kind of an equal amount of usability. So there aren't any trash characters and there aren't any stupidly overpowered characters. And I think Overwatch does a great job of ensuring that each character is fun and is unique without them being super OP. That is, if we're not even considering Mauga, which Mauga is probably the dumbest thing they've ever added to Overwatch in my opinion, but that's a different topic. Also, I'm not going to fault Rivals for not doing this because, you know, it's season 1, but one thing that Overwatch does really well is hero trials. They basically release a new season's character a couple weeks before the season launches, and that way when the new season comes out and the character officially launches, they've already made tons of balance changes and the character fits really well into the meta. I think that's amazing. I wish Rivals could have done it, but at the same time, for season 1 and for their first time adding new characters, I can kind of see why they didn't do it, so I'll give them a pass on that, but I do hope to see something similar in the future. This level of hero rebalancing is really important for Rivals, especially because now they've actually announced that they're going to be pumping out heroes faster than Overwatch is. They're going to be releasing a new hero once every 1.5 months. And I don't think they're going to run out of new characters to release because they have the entire Marvel Comics catalog. But the balance of these characters and even the quality of these characters does kind of come into question. But I think only time will really tell whether or not it's a good idea for them to, you know, release new heroes on such a quick schedule. Moving on to my next point, Marvel Rivals is so, like, overstimulating. Half the time, I don't even know what's going on. When I first started playing Overwatch, the only times that I didn't know what was going on was when somebody used an ability and I had no idea what it did, or before I had learned the alt voice lines, those confused me, stuff like that. But once I knew what different things looked like, it was never confusing. But Marvel Rivals, one of the things that's really annoying is there's just so many particle effects all at once. Like, you have no idea what's happening when you're on point and there's a bunch of people on it with you. Like, you can't tell me that I'm supposed to know who my teammates and my enemies are here. Like, that, it's just ridiculous. It's almost unplayable in my opinion. I really struggled to keep up. Maybe, you know, I'm getting old or something, but it just feels so overwhelming sometimes. Also, I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this, but not only does Marvel Rivals feel darker than a lot of games, even when you turn the brightness up, but it almost feels like foggy, kind of. Like, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but like when I'm playing Overwatch, everything feels like crystal clear, like just kind of crispy almost. And then when I'm playing Marvel Rivals, it's like it's not that way. It's like everything's blurred, or there's fog on all the maps, or I don't really know how to describe it. I might be crazy. Let me know if you've, you know, felt that way in the comments. But all right, now for a couple minor grievances. These aren't things that make me hate the game, but they are things that I would have liked to see a little bit different. First of all, when I was playing, I got really confused some of the times by some of the effects that were applied to me. Like, at one point it said I was exiled. Like, I know what the word exiled means, but like, I'm just sitting here frozen in the air. If I'm exiled, is that just a stun, or do I take more damage, or is something gonna happen to me? Or like, how am I supposed to know what that even means when it just says exiled? It would be nice if at least it said, like, in parentheses, stunned plus and then whatever effects it gave. But that was one thing that kept confusing me, because there are a bunch of different names for a bunch of different abilities that can happen to you. And Overwatch to some extent does have this problem. So that's kind of why this goes in the minor grievances, but it was a little weird trying to like figure out what's even happening. Another small thing is the lack of a play of the game screen. I actually really enjoy seeing who got play of the game and what they did to get it at the end of each Overwatch match, because usually either it's a really impressive play and you know exactly who you're going to endorse, or it's a really stupid play and you realize what kind of lobbies you were just in. In Marvel Rivals, I don't know if they added the ability to see the highlight in season 1 or if that was there from the start, but I had no idea it was even a possibility. All I ever saw was the MVP screen, and then I was like, huh, that's kind of disappointing. You don't even get to see why they got MVP. So I would maybe like to see it just be, it shows you the play of the game, and then you can skip it if you want, because that's how Overwatch does it, and I think that's a lot of fun. The final minor grievance would be just the annoying voice lines. Like, I feel like almost all the girl voice lines are like, they tried to do your stereotypical anime girl voice, but like rather than doing that, they just made it super shrill. Like, so many of them are annoying. Every time I hear Squirrel Girl's ultimate, I get like shivers and secondhand embarrassment. Like, listen to this.
It's spider time! Stampede!
There are also a bunch of other characters that are like this, and I genuinely don't think until Marvel Rivals I had ever played a game where I had the conscious thought, man, this game is really annoying to listen to. Like, that doesn't even make sense, but with Marvel Rivals, they've somehow managed to make the game genuinely annoying to listen to, in my opinion. All right, moving on to another one of the major reasons that I don't like Marvel Rivals. Their support role is kind of lackluster, in my opinion. It feels like they kind of just lean into the idea that supports are just healers. Like, most of the supports just feel like they just spam healing and then spam damage. Like most of them do too much damage and too much healing, and that's kind of it. I really like the different hero kits in Overwatch, and I love playing support. Even when I'm just queuing as a solo, I love learning the different ways that you can enable your teammates to make plays. In Rivals, it feels like you're keeping your teammates alive and then making plays by yourself. And in Overwatch, it feels like almost your entire kit is dedicated to enabling your teammates to do really cool things. A couple examples of Overwatch heroes enabling their teammates to do things would be one, Ana's Nano Boost. It's her ultimate ability, and she basically gives an 8-second super buff to any one of her teammates, and this can make it so that, say, your tank player can just go in and like almost one-shot everyone on the enemy team and have like better movement speed, and paired with the other support who can also give movement speed, and both supports can give healing, this can allow your teammates to make crazy plays that they wouldn't be able to make without you, but also you're not the one like doing anything crazy. You're just using your ultimate and enabling somebody else. I kind of like that dynamic of having the supports. It's not about you, it's about your teammates specifically, and in some cases that does involve making solo plays, but a lot of times it's helping your teammates make plays, if that makes sense. I really prefer that over just spam healing and spam damage as a support. All right, now let's talk about the actual heroes that you play as in Marvel Rivals. The first thing that I don't like about the characters is I found multiple of them that are basically copy pasted from Overwatch and then are just like one ability different. Like, take Psylocke for example. She's literally just Genji. Like, let's take her primary fire, which is kind of just a burst ability that you just shoot. It's short range. It's a lot like Genji's. It's probably the least similar to his kit though, but it still was like, okay, so this kind of just feels the same as how I'd use Genji. But her other ability she uses her sword to just lunge in whichever direction she's looking, very similar to how Genji does, except hers is actually worse because it doesn't even do damage versus Genji's does a little bit of damage at least. Also, Genji's ultimate basically just has him yell a Japanese voice line and then pull out a dragon empowered sword and just do massive damage to people, and you get to, you know, still move around freely and everything. So you can technically waste the ultimate, but you can also use it very effectively and even wipe out the whole team. But guess what Psylocke's ultimate is? She literally just yells a Japanese voice line, pulls out an empowered sword, and then rather than you getting to make cool plays that take a bunch of skill, she does it all for you. Like, take a look at this clip. It didn't even take long for me to get this. I literally just ran into the enemy team and then ulted and walked away from my setup.
It's now or never. Stop them. That is not that peaceful. Double KO.
Like, how stupid is that? I've found multiple characters like Black Widow, for example. It's kind of crazy because obviously Black Widow is not a copy of, you know, an Overwatch character. Black Widow existed before Overwatch did, right? But nowhere in at least the movies, correct me if I'm wrong, but nowhere in at least the movies does she use a sniper rifle. And I see her a lot with like grappling hooks and, you know, batons, or, you know, whatever you want to call them, doing a bunch of like ninja type stuff. And then in Marvel Rivals, she's literally just the person who sits in the back and uses a sniper rifle. And it's so weird to me because like they could have given her really cool abilities, but they made their character with the name Widow function almost the same as the Overwatch character named Widow. Like, they could have done something really cool, but they basically were just like, let's not even bother giving her any cool abilities, and then just copy pasted. And it's so boring because Black Widow is like a cool character, and then they just completely fumbled her for some lazy copy paste of one of Overwatch's probably most hated characters, I'd say. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like most people just don't even like Black Widow. The other thing I don't like about the characters is I can't even tell who I'm fighting half the time. I mean, you can't look at these two characters and tell me that in the heat of battle, while getting pushed by multiple other enemies, you're gonna know which character is which in this situation. Like, with it paused, okay, sure. I mean, you can probably tell, especially if you've played the game, but when you are just in the heat of battle, it's almost impossible to tell. It doesn't even make any sense. And I've had this problem with a fair few characters, not a ton of them, but there have been a couple characters where I'm like, who am I even fighting? And then I realize I'm fighting an 800 HP tank when I thought that it was just a regular character. Add on top of that the fact that for some reason Marvel Rivals skins, I think because they're based off the comic book and movie variants and stuff, these skins make the characters even more confusing. Like, I swear, if they added a Venom skin for Hulk, I would literally have no idea who I'm going into a fight with until they actually started attacking, because they would just look the exact same pretty much. Like, especially again in the heat of the moment, you almost can't tell, and a lot of these skins look nothing like the character that you're fighting, which is ridiculous. And then, I mean, that's literally a competitive advantage to some extent. On the other hand, you have Overwatch that makes these crazy, sometimes over the top, usually really cool skins, especially like the mythic skins they put at the end of each battle pass. And yet sometimes I'm not even sure exactly why, but I know exactly what character I'm going into a fight with at all times. It doesn't matter what their skin is. I think a big part of it is maybe the animations, but I'm not entirely sure. But it's just like in Marvel Rivals, I frequently get confused who I'm fighting if they have some crazy skin on. as opposed to Overwatch. They can have a crazy skin on and I still know exactly who it is. My final concern is the 1.5 month schedule for releasing new characters that I talked about earlier. Overwatch has maintained pretty cool character releases and had them a little more spaced out, but Rivals going for this 1.5 month feels like they're just trying to one up Overwatch, but like at what cost? Like there's a good chance that a bunch of characters come out and they're just inherently boring, and it's like I again, only time will tell, but I'm really like worried that they're gonna have a couple character releases that, because they're just going off of pre-existing characters for the most part, they'll just have like stupid abilities that nobody's gonna even want to use. So we'll see. You know, maybe in a couple months when they release another character, I'll change my mind, but it's a little bit concerning for Marvel Rivals fans. Yeah, just basically just hope that the devs aren't like focusing so hard on one-upping Overwatch with their release schedule that they forget to do the same thing with actually quality characters. Again, I really enjoy Overwatch. I'm not an Overwatch sweat. I haven't been playing for years and years. I didn't fall in love with the game or anything. I just occasionally play Overwatch. I think it's fun. I really wanted to like Marvel Rivals because all my friends loved it and it was super popular, and I figured I'd make a bunch of videos on it, but I just genuinely can't enjoy it, and I hope this video kind of outlined pretty well a couple of the reasons I don't like the game. But let me know your thoughts. Do you enjoy Marvel Rivals? What would you like to see different, even if you do enjoy it, or even if you don't? If you don't plan on playing, what are some things they could do to maybe bring you back and make you try the game again? Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. God bless. Peace.